Good morning. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deana. It is great to see you. I just noticed that our thing said cocktail time, but you know it's coffee time. I mean, if you're having cocktail times, you know I'm not judging. But it is coffee time. Welcome back. It is great to see you. I can't believe I made it in time. I was having like a real race to the finish right there with all this morning stuff. Oh, Stephanie, great to see you. And Ryan, great to see you. Jane, you are on time. You did great. Ryan says, started a punch piece today inspired by Little Wheels Spin and Spin by Buffy Saint Marie. I don't know. That's a like a singer or that's a singer, I guess, right? I'm going to have to Google that and listen to that. That's so cool. It's great to know what the inspiration is. I'm curious to tap into that too. Interesting. Crystal, hi in Halifax. Great to see you. Was it a great Thanksgiving weekend for Canadian friends? Crystal, was it a great one for you? I'm so sorry I forgot to say Happy Thanksgiving last week. I completely spaced out on the fact that Canadian Thanksgiving was coming up. So I'm so sorry about that because I love to say something nice and be cognizant of the fact that we're not completely American centric, right? We're like an international group. I hope it was a great weekend. I hope it was a lot of fun. These are unforgivably dirty. Let me switch off here. I literally ran up the stairs and logged on. It's been a crazy morning so far. Karen, great to see you in crisp, cool Black Forest, Colorado. Oh, fantastic. Lynn, great to see you. Thank you so much, Ryan. You know, there's a funny story behind this outfit. I'm going to show you it's like a baby doll dress, right? I'm going to put it out there and I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to let it sit. About once a year, I am stupid enough to order something from an advertisement on Facebook, clothing. Every single time I do it, what they send me is something horrific, like something that doesn't even qualify as like a garment. I ordered a ton of stuff from this site that looked like it was like fairly local and would come soon. Took 2 months to come. All of it, including this, super horrible quality. Now, it's okay for what we're doing here, but I would not, I mean, I'm just going to go home and change later. I would not go out in public with this garment on because it's like basically made of paper. All of it was horrific. That's the warning. I just wonder if anyone else does this because sometimes I find it irresistible. These ads look so good. And I think I'm not going to make it without that orange and white dress this season. And then I get it, and I'm like almost crying myself to sleep because I'm so angry that I fell for it again. And then this long process with PayPal and getting the money back, and which I did. These are horrible, but I'm wearing this one because I also thought it looks cheerful. Reminds me of my grandmother in the kitchen of her old house, like canning stuff and like beating on hamburgers. It's a bit of that look too. It looked better in the picture, but thank you so much. What a drama that was for me last week. That was a huge wind up. Yes, a 1960s singer. Oh, interesting. I love Joni Mitchell. Okay, so I don't know this other singer. I'm going to have to, Buffy Saint Marie, I'm going to have to check her out. I love Joni Mitchell. She's like one of my all-time favorites. I think Other People's Parties and A Case of You are like my two favorite songs of hers. I've also been listening to Phoebe Snow a lot, who wrote Poetry Man, which I think is my like all-time favorite popular music song that's not from like a Broadway musical. Oh, I love that style of music. It's so good. And also Janice Ian. There's a whole bunch of great people from that time. Anita, great to see you. You had a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend. Oh, I'm so glad. Crystal had turkey and ham. It's nice to have options, right? We do a little bit of that too. We're always vacillating between the turkey, like the bird, and then having that nice big pink ham. If you're a vegetarian, this whole conversation is disgusting, but I like to have both too, or I like to at least know that I'm having one at Thanksgiving and the other at Christmas because it's so hard to choose. There was a few Thanksgivings where we were staying away at the inn that we go to in Concord, Massachusetts, and instead of having anything traditional, I had bouillabaisse. And I mean, that sounds like so far out, but that is like a fairly traditional, like any kind of seafood stew in New England is fairly traditional, like for any meal of the day, including breakfast. Like seafood pies and stuff at breakfast are also completely historically acceptable. Whether you can stomach it or not is something else. But bouillabaisse was another nice option, I have to say, around Thanksgiving. And I actually had it on Thanksgiving, but I missed Tom the turkey. Yeah, it's hard to make these tough calls with food. Dave, good morning. Great morning in Toronto. Oh no. Heidi, Huda, Ava in Belgium. Good to see you. Linda, great to see you in New Jersey. Oh, Phoebe Snow did so many TV commercial songs. Did she really? I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Lately, I've been playing on Pandora. I put on the Joni Mitchell station, and so Phoebe Snow comes up. And I already knew Poetry Man, but I didn't know some of her other songs, and they're popping in, and they are very just beautiful songs, like poetry, right? They're like all poetry. So good. Sharon, great to see you. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Been listening to a lot of Paula Cole lately. 90s suggestion for you all. I'm thinking of Holly Cole. I'm thinking of the jazz singer Paula Cole. Now, what kind of music is that? It sounds great. A 90s suggestion. I love hearing different suggestions. I'm always moving in between the world of like Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond, that kind of thing, and the world of like Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, and then my Broadway music. And did you hear that Angela Lansbury passed away yesterday? That really tripped me up at night when I heard it. I missed that all day, and I started to get all crazy and emotional because she's been one of my icons since the beginning of time. Remember the movie Gaslight that she was in as a young woman? Did she ever look young though, really? I mean, she's always lovely and had a great figure, but she never had that sort of youthful look. But I always admired her so much because I just felt like she was one of these few people in the acting world that seemed to have no ego or vanity about them. Just a hard worker, job to job, hard worker, talented, doing her trade, doing it well. I respect that so much more than people that are in it for, because I have a theater degree too, and I worked in the costume department and sewing and all that, and behind the scenes mostly, although we often did have to act and sing and you have to do everything when you do a theater degree. But I was shocked at how many actors and actresses were so unbelievably self-centered. Like no love for the theater, no love for the show, no respect for other sort of disciplines within the show, like costume people, lighting people, stage management, just in it for themselves. And that, I mean, this was in London years ago that I worked, but I worked in the West End for a long time. And I was just shocked. And also for BBC TV for a while. I was just shocked at how many people have that mentality. And then somebody like Angela Lansbury, who's just like I never met her. I saw her on stage in the musical A Little Night Music, which it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it's my top favorite. I saw her maybe 5, 10 years ago. I can't remember when that was, but it was on Broadway, and she was unbelievably great. Just got the sense that she was just such a normal person. Definitely an icon, another icon gone. Um, so sad. I was so sad thinking about it. She was your hero, Lynn. My favorite movie with her was Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. Absolutely. That was a great one, too. That was such a great one. Murder, She Wrote it's like everybody knows that show. Most people love that show. There were some really bad episodes set in like Africa and the Far East, but most of the ones that were set in Cabot Cove were so incredibly charming and fun, and it was like having a second family watching that series for such a long time. I just love her. I just love her. I loved her in Sweeney Todd, the horror musical by Stephen Sondheim. She originated that role of Mrs. Lovett, and she was amazing in that too. She's just great. I'm so sad that she's gone. It's not like she died young, is it? But it's still like knowing that she's not in the world, and this Christmas she won't be, having Christmas somewhere. She's just gone. It's just sad. But yeah, isn't it funny at the end of the year when you watch like award shows and stuff, how they give in like New Year shows, they do like the year in review and they talk about the people who have passed away during the year. And there's always so many that you start to get this sick feeling of like, well, who's left? Do you know what I mean? It's so upsetting for me when they do that. It's like supposed to be a nice tribute, but I'm always left feeling devastated. Like, is anybody good left living? Every year. It's like, how can there be so many great people every year? But I have a feeling this year she will be the one that like chokes me up the most when I think about it, and when they do choking myself up now, when they do all the tribute shows, because just epic person, epic career. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. First movie I ever saw at the cinema. Oh, Such a good movie. I was just saying to the kids, they haven't seen that movie yet, and it would be hard to catch their interest in that movie because they're just used to a different thing now. I'm going to force it. Believe me, I'm going to force it. But when I think about the movies that used to happen, right? And I think I've probably said this last Halloween, but movies that were big for us when we were younger, like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, like the scary Disney movies, like Child of Glass, like Watcher in the Woods, like my favorite one, the woman, no, the Lady in White. Is it the Woman in White? It's not the Wilkie Collins. It's not that novel. It's the Disney one. The woman, I think it's the Woman in White, with Jessica Lange. That is over the top scary. I wouldn't show that to my kids this year or anytime soon because it involves the murder of a child. But God, is that a scary Halloween movie? Disney just doesn't do those kinds of movies anymore that like traumatize you. They do a completely different kind of movie. But those movies were so great, particularly at this time of year. And Angela Lansbury was in a lot of those movies as well. She was like one of those stable people who they always went to. Hello, Courtney. Hello, Mom. That's okay. You're there now. Not to change the subject, but you love The Witch. Well, by all means, let's, because I was going to forget. I love her too. So I'm working away on her. I've worked on her for the last two karates when I'm over there waiting for the kids at karate. So this is a couple hours of work. This is not a large piece. This is like another beginner piece. Whoa, I love this piece. I really love this piece. Got some weird lighting going on, but yeah, my monitor is never really good. All these purples in the background. I did a little video on her yesterday. I got the cat in there. Her green hand is kind of holding onto the cat, and cat is trick-or-treating with a little jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. I still have mixed feelings about the cat. I ran the stripe down his nose because I feel that that's my sort of signature thing with cats is having that prominent like nose down the center. But I feel also that he looks like a skunk. So I'm just not sure. I'm going to let it sit for a little while, but I like his little hips the way they are, like his little feet and his tail shooting up. And I am going to put in the stars really crazy novelty fabric, like crazy mohair, pom-pom, eyelash, laddery stuff into those stars. And then I'm just going to complete this multicolor purple background in the background. And that one, I don't know if it's up on the site now, but it will be up on the site shortly. I really like it. Thanks, Stephanie. I mean, I'm loving it. And this I don't think is showing up as bright. Her skin tone is super, super neon. And she's got kind of copper hair, and I like that too, and an exaggerated bun. I like the shape of, I like this pattern. This is one that I did like in a flash when I was in a really bad panicky mood. Sometimes it helps to just do a few quick sketches, and often when I'm in that mindset, it evolves into something that is really workable. So for me, that was really workable. I want to show you the pieces we were working on this weekend too. Let me first come back to our Halloween calendar and see what's what. What date is it? 12. Is it really 12? So we had a bunch of days off in between, during which time was Canadian Thanksgiving and a long weekend here, former Columbus Day, which is now generally known as Indigenous Peoples Day in this country, in the U.S. Let's see, number 8. What do we got? Who is the most famous ghost detective? You're going to be sick when you hear this. Sherlock Moans. I don't even know if I should read these out loud, right? They're that bad. That's quite cute, though. I like the idea of a ghost being a detective. So let's see. Let's bring us up to date with our calendar so we know what's what. Can you believe it is the 12th? Holy mackerel. Why doesn't the scarecrow eat much? He's already stuffed. All right. That makes me sad. But cute for kids. Oh, I want Scarecrow to come in. One of these little guys might... Isn't that cute? That's a really cute picture, isn't it? I like that little hat and stuff. That's really different. That's really cute. That'd make a real cute composition. 9. All right, let's see. We're getting there. 10. Boy, these are puzzling. I think I need children's eyes to find them. How do ghosts like their coffee? Oh, this is cute. Dark with extra scream. That's quite cute. These are all ones that you can put in the back of your mind if there's a child in your life. They live for these kinds of horrific jokes, don't they? Why didn't the zombie go to school? Because he felt rotten. Oh dear. Oh dear. That's that little guy. And I think that brings us to today, the 12th. Let us see. By the way, we are going to, on this episode, finish looking at the rugs that have recently appeared at auction, the antique rugs. We're going to be looking at the rest of those together so we don't squander those great images. Here it is. Why do black cats ride with witches on broomsticks? Because it's quicker than walking. Now that's the worst one of all, certainly, but nice silhouette of the witch and the cat. Look at how many doors are open already. Can you see that? That's how far through the month we are. I wonder if there's such a thing as a Thanksgiving Advent calendar. I could use one of those too. It really helps me mark the days. Speaking of which, Jane, I'm going to do the shout out. Jane sent me some great shout out information, things that I need to shout out that I always forget. God, do I appreciate the help. I love you, Jane. You are always there for me. That is incredible. Shout out. Okay, so these are some shout outs for today because it is October. We are working toward both bingo night and gallery night in the month of October will be Halloween themed. Shout out for Halloween rugs for gallery night. So if you have Halloween themed rugs, past, present, working on future ideas, sketches, things you'd like to talk about, other rugs that you've seen, anything Halloween themed, go ahead and send those to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I need those, and those will go into the Halloween gallery night this month. Okay, let's see, designs. Oh, right, the Design Like class coming up for this month is Design Like the Fairy Tale Storybook. And we will be putting together a series of specific illustrations step by step. So we will all have similar, I think there's 10 or 12 compositions in total that you'll end with, but they'll all be similar in theme, but your version of it. So we'll be going through classic tropes of fairy tales, so a little bit on the magical side for this month. And I'll be giving you lots of supporting drawings and information before the class that you can print out if you want, that you can use if you feel like you are not a great artist all on your own, or that you might be stressed out during class, which you never should be during my classes. I'll never put you on the spot. That'll be a lot of fun, and you'll end up with a lot of really magical illustrations that are all yours, perfectly suitable for rug making. The Design Like classes. That's Wednesday, the 26th of October from 6 to 8, Sunday, the 30th of October from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Beginner rug hooking class on Cape Cod is the 22nd of this month, and we are doing the rainbow sheeps I have that are out at Pasture. I think it's called Pumpkin Pasture. I'll be teaching that in person in Dennis on Cape Cod on Saturday, October 22nd. Also, I'll have to put it on the calendar, and Jane, I'll give it to you. In November, I just committed to a class with the girl Deana at Madison Wool, and we're going to be doing, because it's right after American Thanksgiving, I didn't want to do anything turkey themed, so I'm going to tap into our collection of, from last year, the Helen Albee Abenaki rugs. All those designs I did that I imagined were like the designs that Helen Albee drew when she was leading that rug hooking mission at the very beginning of the 20th century. She wrote that wonderful book about starting a mission, teaching women how to rug hook, and saying Abenaki-inspired designs are the best designs that there are. Forget about scrolls and florals and medallions. You want Abenaki designs. And then she publishes this book with not one illustration in it, not one drawing in it, of an example of one of these rugs. So while we don't have more than two, we don't have more than two examples of what an Abenaki rug, according to Helen Albee, looked like. I did a whole series last year of rugs where I pulled motifs from Abenaki lore and other Native American tribes, their sort of lore and imagery, symbolism, and I made a series of rugs. So I'm going to be, I chose one of those, one called Path Through the Mountains, which is like these almost board game straight kind of Candyland rows with staggered checkers, and on the side zigzags that represent mountains, so pathways through mountains. I'm going to be teaching that in person in November in Madison, Connecticut, if you are near us. So all of those things are coming up. This past weekend, I was teaching the pumpkin class, the sugar skulls. I did this past weekend. So everybody was working on whatever skull they chose. And I ended up, I always bring tons of extra stuff because people like to buy extra bits and pieces on the way out the door. Everybody did so well in that class, too. It was really remarkable. This is Days of Wine and Roses. So I'm going to be putting up, I'm just going to let you know first, I'm going to be putting up in our Facebook group, I had a few kits left over, some of the faces. So I'm going to be putting these up at like a bargain price because these are leftovers for me. And it's almost Halloween. I'm going to be putting up a series of different characters, and each one comes with a set of wool that I have already put together. So for example, I put a different color palette together, and I love them all so much that if nobody buys them, I'm just going to open them and use them. But they each have their own sort of distinct color palette with lots of different colors that are meant to work well with the pumpkin that you chose. So I'm going to be putting those up. I think I'll put those up for 45. They would normally be, maybe I think I'll put them up for 40, right, to be an extra bargain. They would normally be more because this is a lot of wool, right, and it's all cut into number 8s. So there's a bunch of those going up later today. Let's look at our slideshow from Friday. We were looking at Friday, we were looking at rugs that had recently come to auction at the auction house Pook and Pook. And they have such a focus on folk art, very high-end folk art, that we were talking on Friday Night Cocktail Night about following these online auctions, right, that you can access through Live Auctioneers, which is a big umbrella site, lots of auctions within. You can go into Live Auctioneers and type in hooked rug and see what's available. And they will be coming from different auctions all over the country. And then you want to be careful about the shipping prices and the buyer's premiums because it's never what you think it's going to cost. It's always like close to twice as much. So just be careful about that. Don't be disappointed. But it is fun to shop for rugs that way because we don't all live in areas where there is a wealth of rugs at the local antique store. So it is fun to do, and they are often bargains. The ones we were looking at Pook and Pook, they were going for the higher end, and I was really glad of that. That's one of the patterns I put out after, and that's still available. Also, the spiderweb pattern. Let me see if I can find where we left off. We definitely saw the Lone Star crib quilt. These went in the higher range. Most of them exceeded the estimate, and I think we were all. I don't know. Did we do that one? Hang on. Let me backtrack a little bit. Ooh, now I'm questioning how far we got. We definitely did Lone Star, without a doubt. I remember that conversation. Yeah, I think we did. This is the one of the ones that I created as a pattern for the shop. This is, I call this one Bridge Party. Look like a card table, like a gaming table. I'm pretty sure we did that one. And did we do this one? Did we do that one? I think we did. Yeah, we did. Because we were talking about the expression on the sheep's face and how different this was. Marilyn, great to see you. Great to see you anytime. Cat's Gallery, great to see you. Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, that's a good one. You mean for the design like? Oh, that is a must do, isn't it? That's a great idea. You know, it's funny you say that. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this, but I was thinking the other day about the idea of Little Red Riding Hood and the red cape. And it was bringing me to the idea. I was talking to my buddy Rebecca of Storyteller Wool. We were talking about that Called Midwife series and the red cloaks that they wear. And I was saying, oh, you know, it's like in early America, it was very traditional and expected for women who were nurses to wear the red cape. It was like a uniform, right? So you would, whatever, you would make it yourself, but it would be red. And I thought, interesting, those two things must be connected. And I just wonder how Little Red Riding Hood fits into that. It could just be that her cloak was red, but it's just interesting because usually like a red cape was reserved for like a medic of some sort. So I thought, interesting, I wonder if that was supposed to tie into the story because she was like going to her grandmother's to care for her grandmother. I thought, I wonder if there's more to it than that. And I haven't had time to read up on that. But I thought there could be some little correlation there that would be interesting to go down the rabbit hole with. So I'm pretty sure we did this guy because he had such a sweet, soft face. I think we remarked that he went for the higher end of his estimate. Well, he was between 500 and 800. He went for 750. I felt that he should have gone for a lot more because I think this is an exceptional example of altering what is a commercial pattern, and I'm pretty sure it is a commercial pattern, to be really your own style, or I don't want to say giving up on the details of the commercial pattern, but maybe finding them, I don't know, insipid or unnecessary and saying, I think I'm just gonna marble cake this out to the corner and I'm gonna checker the back of it and we're good. But I think the shape of the sheep really was the remarkable thing about that rug. We definitely did this one right. We talked about it had a bit of an Asian influence, the kind of ginger jar shape to the vase that's really distinctive Deco era. And do you remember with this one, by way of recap, how we were saying that the way that this is hooked is the new style of hooking at this period. So 1920s, 1930s, Pearl McGowan has already started working in rug hooking. And it is a thing people will be taught in large numbers and certified, and those teachers will teach more people. And at a certain point, we are working toward an aesthetic where you are hooking in a much more thoughtful way in terms of technicality, right? Being a technical hooker becomes the emphasis over being a creative fly by the seat of your pants hooker. That is a shift in emphasis that certainly happens in the middle 20th century. So interesting. That was an interesting rug that only sold for $425. This is the rug that exceeded all expectations. I think we saw all of these. This is the rug that was estimated between 3 and 500. Like, that's insane, right? And it went for 1,600, like 1,600. This is a great Thanksgiving theme too. And Karen, we were talking about the spool. You brought up the spool block, which is one of my favorite quilting blocks, versus cathedral windows. And who knows, it might be neither. But lots of different inspiration here, and fantastic piece. Sold for a good amount, as it should. We saw this one too. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. The Bernese Mountain Dog, that was definitely taken from some kind of illustration, popular illustration too, because we're still seeing it. We saw Pup, Recumbent Dog. He sold for $900. We saw, oh, this is right where we left off, I think. Yep, we saw this one. We saw the Hutchinson rug, right? The must cook for the in-laws sentiment, a bit snarky. And we saw this one too. Okay, we're catching up to where we were. I'm going to fast forward here. Yep, so remember on this one, I think we're right at the point now. No, I remember which one it was. This is one that we thought was a Hutchinson rug, even though it is not attributed. It would be kind of unthinkable to think it was anybody but the Hutchinsons having designed this rug. I wish we could see this more clearly, that kind of Cupid or angel character. Obviously the voice of like morality, morals, speaking to her in her ear. She looks very worried because he seems to be trying to sweet talk her or convince her of something, and the little sort of angel character that seems to be disembodied over her shoulders, probably telling her to maybe think twice about this whole transaction, whatever it is. And I'll just bring you to this, that adorable duck pond sold for $125. I think that is a crime. This is an antique pattern. If you like this if you like this exact thing, you could do it exactly the way that it is. These beautiful, simple compositions are so contemporary that they would go well in any house at all. This is where we left off. We left off talking about the crossover here between this Jacobean crewel work style of needlepoint, needlework design in general, and how this rug is a real anomaly because it bears some of the trappings of those. Oh, I love those ducks too. Crystal, those ducks are so like the kinds of things that you do. Yours are superior, but it is a lot like your repeat motifs, your animals, very like basic shapes, very high impact. Really cool. I'm not surprised that you like it. Ready, willing, and able. Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. So this one was different. The color scheme was certainly different. It still remains amazing to me. I just want to talk on this a little bit more, and you can chime in with your thoughts. Absolutely. Oh, I missed something in the, Ryan says, thanks for all the work. Oh, we all thank you, Ryan. We all spread the word, I'm sure. There's certainly more hookers coming on board, and I have to say I'm really happy. Our group, I think I mentioned, tipped over to 11,000, which for a Facebook group with a craft as narrow as ours is a remarkable number. And I don't attribute that to anything that I've done. I think that is because there are so many people of the 11,000 who are active in the group on the Facebook page, which is called Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, who are always there for new people, for questions, for opinions, for praise and encouragement, because I am hardly ever there. So it is all you that have run with that page, and that page has gotten so large. And when I do tune in, I am so proud and grateful that there are so many people there who are so positive and so forthcoming with help that as soon as somebody asks a question, it's like 20 answers, appear. And I think that must be so comforting for people who are approaching a craft that there's not a lot of information out there for, and it's not stuff that you find at Joann's or Michael's or the big box store. So it's great. It's great to be that resource and to be there. But thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. So one of the things about this rug that will forever be a mystery to me, a mystery that I'll never solve, is the colors. Why do these colors work? There are so many cool colors in this piece and neutrals. There's so many browns on the cooler side. Just too many browns sometimes don't make for a dynamic composition, and yet this is a dynamic composition. It's very heavy on the brown and the icy blue colors. And those are, these are some cooler browns in here. These are not, with the exception of the tree trunks, the background colors is quite cool and neutral. It's amazing that this works. The background is also fairly patterned. So it's not solid. It has more of a static feel to it. It's a kind of an active background. I love it too, Anita. It's just an exceptional rug. And there's so much going on, but all of that activity and all of those motifs are really well supported by the amount of outlining here in black. And, if I was planning on doing a rug with this much brown, I would not be thinking of outlining in black. I'd be thinking of outlining in a much lighter color, a much more unexpected color, like lilac or something like that. That's me, right, going over the top all the time. But the black outline works perfectly. And now that I'm seeing it, you couldn't possibly do anything else. It is just an exceptional rug. So incredibly, this rug, this is another Puch and Puch rug, but this was in 2014 auction. So it was a while ago. But this sold for $125, and that makes me feel a bit ill because this $125, it's such a good rug, isn't it? Now, this is going to be surprising. The tree bends around into a heart shape. Oh my gosh, Karen, you're right. I didn't notice that. Absolutely, it bends around into a heart shape. That is so cool. I didn't notice that. Wow, it gives it, I know they're parrots, or they're supposed to be parrots, but you could do a design like this with like lovebirds. Wouldn't that be a great Valentine's Day or wedding rug design? If you know someone who's getting married, a rug like this with the heart and lovebirds on it, because it doesn't have to be super feminine. This is not super feminine at all. But I love the idea of bringing back wedding rugs that the bride and groom stand on when they take their vows, because then they can hang it on the wall or put it, next to the bed or put it somewhere special and always remember that time that they were standing on it, making that vow. I mean, it's just a beautiful idea. It would be a great design for that. So this is a smart composition. Thank you, Anita. I do my best. I really do. I do at least my best. Now, does this rug look familiar? I'm going to take you backward for a second. So clock this with your eyeballs just for a minute, and then I'm going to go dark, and we're going to scroll back because, hang on. Here we go. Same rug. Absolutely the same rug. So this is one that came up for auction 2 weeks ago now at Puch and Puch. And the estimate was $400 to $600, and it sold for $225. Now, clock this. This is absolutely not the same pattern. It is the same rug as this one. And this one sold in 2014, not for $225, for $1,600, for $1,600. So it just goes to show, in 2014, this rug sold for $1,600. Between 2014 and 2022, the same exact rug came up for auction again at the same venue, at Puch and Puch, and the second time around sold for $225. So $1,600 to $225. It just goes to show you how volatile auctions can be, and particularly the rug market. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is a patriotic rug, and patriotic rugs are not at their all-time high right now. I'm not going to remark any more on that, but things come and go, right? Feelings come and go, and hopefully come again. But interesting to see the journey of this exact rug. Because if the person bought that for an investment, they lost they lost $1,375 on that rug. That's extraordinary. Another beautiful rug. This is called Ethel's Chickens. This was made in 1972. This was actually, Ethel refers to Ethel Bishop, who happens to be, this is just like a little tidbit that I know because I've gone down this rabbit hole in the past. The man who I think currently, if not recently, was the curator of the Folk Art Museum in New York City. I think it was his grandmother was Ethel Bishop, and she made this rug in 1972. So while it looks like a much later rug, earlier rug, it's not. It's 72. That's the year I was born. This rug sold in 2014 for $425. So this is another, how similar is this to so many of the rugs that we've seen? These fold over half patterns that it's the exact same thing on both sides. And you give a little different character to each one, little different color handling. Placement of the leg is a little bit different. The comb is a little bit different. The eyeball is a little bit different. The border is very rough. So this would, all be hand cut, repurposed, thrifty style, old time construction, right? This is not, even though it's 1972, this is not a disciple of Pearl McGown. This is not somebody using a Bliss cutter. This is somebody cutting with a pair of rough scissors, whatever they had on hand, making a very simple composition. It is a great idea, Marilyn, isn't it? And just going for it, and again, outlining, using the black outline. It doesn't have to be bold. It doesn't have to be perfect. One of the things that came up in the class this weekend with the pumpkins, it comes up in every class, people agonizing because, they're hooking. A lot of people wanted to hook outlines for parts of their pumpkins, agonizing because the loops aren't the same height. They're not perfect. And I keep driving the point home and trying to show examples of rugs where it depends on what style you like, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. But when you think about what an antique rug looks like, or in this case, a 1972 rug, it's not perfection. It's the suggestion, it's the feel, it's the atmosphere, and the great vibe that the rug gives you. And it's not due to solid, perfectly hooked loops and perfectly hooked lines. It's not due to uniformity or conformity. It is due to feeling, emotion, expression, all of these fleeting things that you can only get when you want to hook in that style. You don't get them if you are a more technical person and you like to hook in the more technical style. This stuff does not appeal to you at all. This folk stuff, you don't sort of aspire to doing pieces like this. But if you do aspire to doing pieces like this, you have to let all of that stuff go by the wayside. You just have to let it go. Just rhythm, motion, momentum, speed, feeling. You become the vessel, and your hand is holding the hook, and you are the vessel, and you just keep going. And all of those decades, almost 2 centuries now, of past rug hookers channeling through you as you go, and you end up with a piece that looks like this, that has that spirit of a much older rug. That is how you get a rug that looks like an antique rug. Does it sound mystical and fruity and new agey? Absolutely. But I do believe that it is like you put everything that you know into a crucible and burn it down to just, I pull up loops. That's what I do. I don't overthink it. I just pull up loops. They're not all going to be even. Some of them are going to be all Raggedy Ann, raggle-taggle gypsy loops. It is what it is. And you get something that looks like this. And this is my favorite style of hooking. So I really like this piece, $425 in 2014. Ryan says, love the multicolor stripes for dimension on the flat chickens. Me too. You know what those stripes remind me of? What's kind of a blanket? You know those white blankets that have like just a few stripes in them, but then on the edge of the blanket, there's like a number of just stitched stripes to tell you the quality, like X amount of stripes is a higher quality. Do you know what I'm talking about? I know they're like super collectible wool rugs. They wouldn't be good for us for hooking, and they're expensive, and you wouldn't want to cut them up. But you know what I mean? Because they're usually white background rugs with like red, blue, maybe yellow, sometimes green stripes. I know somebody's going to know, and you're going to put it into the sidebar, and I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. But that's what those little markings remind me of. I really, really like that. Now, I put this one into the Ribbon Candy hooking store, and I forget what I called it. You'll find it. It's also in the post for our Facebook group too. I chose 6 of the rugs that are antique rugs from the slideshow. And Mary Jo Taylor wrote me about this. I'm going to start the next episode with she sent me a beautiful Hudson Bay. Thank you, Dave. That's it. Hudson Bay point blanket. Thank you. She sent me a beautiful email because she was inspired by this exact rug to do some of the work that she does. This is one of her great inspiration rugs. So I want to read you what she wrote. I just forgot about it for this episode. So we'll return to this because it was definitely worth having. Dave says, number of stripes determine the size. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, does the stripies on the tail remind you of the Hudson Bays too? I'm just wondering because it's like the same colors too, and I thought they're wool. Like interesting. It's just interesting. It is a nice little. And you know, if you had like a Hudson Bay blanket on, if you're lucky enough to have a big Hudson Bay blanket on the bed and then have this on the floor, they would kind of be like companions. They would match really well. Really sweet. So this is a beautiful piece. This is a large piece. Again, I don't have the sizes for these. 19th, this is a 19th century dove. The estimate was between 3 and 5,000 in 2014 Pook and Pook auction. And this is another rug that sold for 1,600. It seems to be a bit of a glass ceiling, the 1,600 mark. We rarely get rugs that will exceed that number, then or now. It sort of does. Yeah. I mean, just maybe color-wise, maybe just the distance, the sort of grouping of the stripies reminds me of the Hudson Bay. Krista says all proceeds from New Bay rugs are being donated to indigenous peoples. I didn't know that. They have a complex history. Now, are Hudson Bay rugs from like Hudson River Valley? Does anybody know? Because it seems like the first two people to remark on them are both Canadian. I'm thinking, are they Canadian rugs? Have I been wrong about this the whole time? Overthinking it, right? Blankets, not rugs. No, that's okay. Gotcha. Interesting. I feel like this could be a little rabbit hole of its own. You know what those rugs? I'm not gonna completely go down, but you know what the Hudson Bay rugs would be great for because I do sometimes see them at Goodwill and stuff, and they're still usually, $50 or more. So it's not like they're $5, but I still see them a lot, but they're often stained and they often have holes. But you know what they would be good for is to use as a background for an applique piece to cut, get lots of different backings for them, or penny rugs or something like that. They're way too thick to hook with, so that's not going to happen. You could also attempt to use a blanket like that as your backing material for pulling through loops, like for hooking. Because of course you can do that with sweaters, like Fair Isle sweaters and things like that that are that you wouldn't want to even wash and try to cut up for rug hooking because there's too many thready threads and it's just not going to happen. Those kinds of sweaters, and I've done a video on this, I know, you can stretch on a frame or in a hoop and you can hook into a sweater because it's a knit, essentially a woven, right? Depends on the way that it's knit, but usually there are going to be holes at regular junctures where you can pull hoops up. So that's another idea, is hooking into the backing of something like a Hudson Bay blanket or sweater, something like that. Coming into the cold season, if you're looking at your stuff and finding it's damaged or it doesn't fit, God forbid, or there's holes in it, God forbid, there's lots of other things you can do with it. Even if you can't cut it up and use it as wool strips, there's still a lot of other things that you can do with it. Dave says, I think they were originally made in England and then sold through Hudson Bay stores, trading posts, a troubled history. Oh, interesting. They make great coat. Yeah, they would, Stephanie, wouldn't they? They make great coat, jacket, mittens. Oh, interesting. You know what I saw this weekend too, and I bet you've seen this. I've seen it more and more lately. This weekend, I was up at my mom's and, for our 3-day weekend. I taught on Saturday, but then on Sunday, we went to the Village Green in Granville, which is the first town over the Massachusetts line from where my mom lives in Connecticut. And on the Village Green, it was, I wish we could have all been there together. I really wish. It's such an old time fair. Like the stalls, you're seeing crafts you just don't see anymore. People making like trivets out of jute and selling them for $8. I bought some. I'll show you next time. They're not near me. Old time quilting, like with 80s fabric, doing stuff in hoops with a little bit of trapunto. You're seeing crafts that I saw growing up in like the 80s, like the exact same things. So many of them, and it's super nostalgic and sweet and adorable, very, very atmospheric. But what I saw, one lady was doing, she was taking jean jackets and things that were obviously from Goodwill, because some of them were like the Gap or Chico's or whatever, colored ones, denim ones, and she would, and I know you've seen this, but it's cool every time, like over the back panel or like the front pocket, an old needle point or something, like apply it like an applique, a giant patch, old cross stitch needle point, crewel work, nothing hooked, but like lots of that kind of thing. So you get like the patchwork of different motifs, and they were kind of themed out. Like some were just floral, some were just birds. They were really pretty. The one I liked, I mean, I couldn't even get my arm in it, so it's like to say it didn't fit is like an understatement. And it wasn't a child's; it was just a small. But anyway, different story. And lots of nice food and that kind of thing. But that lady who was doing that, getting all these old textiles and cutting them up and turning them into like Frankenstein clothing items, she also was doing the thing where she was making these big mittens, like out of patches of material. And she, I'm sure, was using Hudson. I saw at least that stripe combo and at least one pair of mittens. And the mittens were super expensive. Well, maybe not super. I mean, they were like 40, maybe 40 something, which is quite a bit for a pair of mittens because I usually get the isotoners from like TJ Maxx because they're good driving gloves, non-skid. So I was kind of like sticker shock. But of course it's worth it because somebody cut all these, and they were patchwork too. Like the back of the mitten, the cuff was made from like a different sweater. Like everything was, it was like a mutant, right? It was all different and all patched together. Super interesting and exciting. And really like eye candy stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have to choose my battles because the kids are shopping too, and they all want, everybody wants different stuff, and so much fun. Lots of old painted slates. And I bought a couple of slates, one of a little witch with like all these berries and grapes in the background. I thought year round. And then another one, I'll show you those next time too, if they're in the well of the car still. But like a headless horseman kind of a deal with pumpkin. This ghostly character, not on horseback, but going through a cemetery with all of these little tombstones. And on the top it said, "By the light of the silvery moon," but it was a real Halloween image. So cute. And like if you got into toll painting in the 80s, 90s, right, you recognize some of these designs from those toll painting books. That kind of thing. So charming, impossibly charming, right? Stephanie says, I have used embroidery punch on those. Turns out great. I've been seeing that more and more. People doing small shaped punch designs, either mini punch, Russian punch, right, with like DMC floss or the Valdoni stuff, or are like kind of punch, like crystal punch, like the punch needle punch full size, making applique shapes and then applying them to different places. I think that's really smart because if you think about it, I'm picturing my old cheerleading sweater or jacket or whatever, and it had an applique of like a megaphone, and it was punched when I picture it. Mom, I hope we still have that somewhere. Haven't seen that in forever, but it had my name on it, and like the name was embroidered, but the applique itself was a million tiny loops. Maybe that's how I got started. When I think about why did I ever start this in the first place, it was a million tiny loops, and I treasured that thing because it was amazing that I made it onto the team. I am the least athletic person on earth. So, I hope I still have that megaphone. Let's come back here and complete this episode before it's absolutely ridiculous. So this is an extraordinary piece and certainly one of the better known of the antique pieces. It comes up now and again at auction. This is really a remarkable piece because it's an original design, without a doubt. I love the idea of the dove of peace with a little olive branch or whatever in his little beak. This is somebody who is familiar with the idea of using scrolls in rug making and how prominent a motif scrolls are in rug making. But somebody who couldn't remember exactly how to do it and dropped in scrolls that work very, very well, are very symmetrical. They are a huge part of the composition. It's like they're growing into the center and kind of overtaking much of the real estate of the piece that leaves very little room for the dove. It could also be with this piece, and since we can't see the back, it's hard to know. It could be that it was originally like a smaller welcome mat size, but they might, potato sack, right? They might have used the entire sack and possibly used a second sack, opened up and put half of it on the top and half of it on the bottom. Can you see what I mean with your eye? Because it almost looks like in the center there is a complete pattern. And if with your hand you just cut off the middle of the scroll, then it is more of a normal scroll like we would expect to see during the late Victorian period. it's that additional part of the scroll that's very unusual. And it does make me think maybe they did sew on extra backing so that they could make this into a larger piece. And if they did that as an afterthought, but being a detective dog here, if they did that as an afterthought, they would have a problem with the scroll if they had already started the scroll. So they would have to extend the scroll in whatever shape they could. I mean, if I had to make a guess, that's the guess that I would make for this piece, was that it was kind of a work in progress that grew during the making of it, because I can't picture somebody laying this out this way. It's not impossible, but I think it's more likely that this was a piece that grew either after it was made or long after it was made. Like it's down on the ground and you get another potato sack and you're thinking, well, that's a nice welcome mat by the door, but I'd really like it for the middle of the room. And you cut up another potato sack and add on to it. Because with this craft, you can do that. You just go back into the piece and start adding more loops, like it was last year when you did the piece in the first place. One of the beauties of this forgiving craft. This is another exceptional piece. This is another one that I put into the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. I called this one Pond Side. I love this piece for the ducks. It's like the other two little swimming ducks that we saw, for the geese in this case. Are these geese or ducks? These are ducks. Are these ducks? Geese. These are geese. I'm sorry. Beautiful shape, pointed shape of their body. Look at the way that their feet are. It's like a little ballet underneath them. All this motion of the feet, not exactly the same, but really beautiful. Another example of a half and half, exactly identical on both sides. This has more of like a Valentine border on it, doesn't it? All of these scallops jumping up with these berries or whatever they are. They almost look like little candies. It's so charming. Limited colors, really strong design. Placement of black, right? When they've run out of the more mellow colors, going to the black and filling in that way. So exciting. I just love the way that the black fell. It could be that there was more black in it at one time, and because of fading over the years, it, has changed into this kind of. My stomach is growling like crazy, if you're wondering. It's not a monster. It's my stomach. But I just love the contrast of this piece. It is, to me, this is like the ultimate folky piece. And it has a little bit of that softness and romance to it, too. A real attempt to do something that looks postcard perfect, that has a real feel to it. I love how close the heads of the geese are to the border. Usually you would leave more space, right? But the border was important for the person who made this. They really wanted to have a very prominent border. This is an exceptional piece that broke the glass ceiling. So while this was estimated for between $500 and $700, it sold for $1,700. So it sold $1,000 over the top of the estimate. I think that's great because it is just a gorgeous piece. I mean, if you had a nice sideboard in your dining room or something, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than this, does it? Beautiful piece. Now here's another recumbent animal. This is recumbent leopard. This was done in 1943, and we know that because it's signed. Look at the black boxes at the bottom, 19 on one side and 43 on the other. So this isn't a very old piece. This is a wartime piece. This is an extraordinary piece. This is like very, very highly collectible. This is going to be a big price tag. So the estimate for this was between 1,000 and 2,000. Now, let's look at what's going on with this piece. I mean, this is just exceptional. The background is extraordinary. It has a bit of an Henri Rousseau feel, like this exotic animal sitting there looking directly at us in a little bit of a challenging way, a little bit of a menacing way, a little bit of a friendly smile, like Peaceable Kingdom smile, but not to be trusted. Placement of spots, really thoughtful and careful, not just patterned, but, splattered thoughtfully. The two on the head really stand out for me. Elongated face, kind of the El Greco leopard of leopards. A little bit of shadowing done here in a very folky style. But I think the game changer with this piece is that background. This is like a completely wacky, unique background with these kinds of long fronds, like a weeping willow feel to it, but this insane patterning that is done by hit or miss, breaking down into small boxes and just going concentric boxing around, right around in a square, different colors every time. You get this really intricate but formulaic pattern. You see it's broken down into vertical parallels and then further broken down into diagonal boxes, and each one is handled in a hit or miss manner. So estimated between 1 and 2,000, it sold for 3,400. So it went way over the top estimate of that. This is a piece with legs. I mean, if this comes back to auction, this at some point in our lives, I'm sure that rugs that are at the top of the collector's market like this one, they will be going for more like 6,000, 10,000. I have no doubt. The more we talk about rugs, the more people who will become interested in rugs, whether they're making them or buying them. And it will drive the price up, which is kind of bad news for us if we like collecting as well. But at the same time, it's wonderful to have any kind of a renaissance for our craft. This is another recumbent animal. This is recumbent lion. So you have to look at the ghostly fading on this rug. But this is a beautiful lion. It has a bit of a human face. This is a little bit less appealing to me as a design, just because he reminds me of the musical version of Scrooge, right, with Albert Finney, the part with the door knocker, that turns into Marley's face, and it's like, Scrooge, it's like that exact face. But, beautiful execution of the mane, very pattern driven, so much fading in this piece, but it does make your eye stretch to find the flowers, to find that recumbent body of the lion. He looks very comfortable. The body is very well done. This is an early 20th century piece according to Pook and Pook, and it may be. If you notice, it's a large piece also, and it has one single braided border. So I think adding to the value of it, the cross of those two techniques. It is a large piece. It has so much fading that this piece sold for $300. I would say, I'd be tempted to say this is a 19th century piece, not a 20th century piece. I would put this more like 1880s, 1890s. But I would be tempted with $300 is not nothing, but it's not $3,300. I would be tempted with a piece like this to try to recreate the browns in the body of it by doing super careful, localized re-dyeing of individual loops. I would be very tempted to do that with this piece, just to try to bring it back to its former glory. And of course, if you flipped it over, can you imagine how exciting it would be for us to flip this over and see what the colors were? Because then you'd know what colors you were going for. It would be such a wonderful project for 300. And 300 is a lot of money, but you could see how this could become just a beautiful piece to work on, and the satisfaction of bringing it back to its former glory would be so, so great. Another recumbent lion piece. Remember, recumbent seems to be the word with the Pook and Pook auctions. Estimated between $700 and $900. It sold for $1,600. Another half and half composition. This is kind of a funny composition because we have what looks like a very architectural, like the kind of lion you would see in plaster or marble outside like a grand home. This is a half and half piece, but we've got this very architectural lion kind of sitting, two lions, sitting lumpy with like a really kind of garden gate in the background, like the fence of a country cottage. It's a little bit unexpected, and I think it adds to the charm. Beautiful piece. Did I say estimate was $700 to $900 and it sold for $1,600? Lots of lions at the end of the episode here. I'm just going to push through the lions. I love the breakdown of this. I love the warm colors being in the front with the two lions in the tree, and then the cooler, more deco kind of a palette with the outlining and the brighter colors happening in the background. I love the broken up quality of the background. There seems to be a lot of damage on the left water-wise or bleeding-wise. Hard to say what's going on there, but it certainly is still a really striking piece. This obviously is going to remind us of, if you're familiar with Edward Sands Frost lions, this is a Sands Frost lion. So very different pose, still two lions. This is the juvenile lion with the adult male lion. This is one of the Sands Frosts, and this is another of the Sands Frosts. Same pattern, different execution, different maker completely. But you can see how the weight of this lion is quite close to that rug that we were just looking at. The pose of it, the weight of it, it could well be that the person who made the one that we were just looking at was familiar with the Sands Frost lions and was trying to copy them. Because why not? I mean, people did that. It made a lot of sense. If you didn't have access to another lion backing or stencil and you wanted to do it, you would look at your neighbors and try to copy it. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, isn't it? This is the last image of the day, and this is another lion. So Yeah, there seemed to be a rash of lions in this particular 2014 auction. Very different one here. I have to say, I think this one is, no, this is a different one. This is a different one. This is not Puck and Puck. This is eBay. I'm not sure if this is currently on there or if it, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It is Puck and Puck. I'm looking at my abbreviations. It is Puck and Puck. 20th Century Lion sold for $650. So sorry about that. Yeah. Um, I think we have one more slide after this, actually. I'm sorry, jumped the gun. Really beautiful piece. This has such a wood cut quality to it. This mane is so striking. There is maybe some fading, maybe the whole thing was mellow, but talk about focus on one aspect of the design. I love the ground. It's almost like the ground is moving under the lion's body. It's so broken up. It's so appealing. I love that punch of green on the far right. I love how the landscape breaks the border, right? It goes outside of the border, and there's only a border like a proscenium around the top and sides. I love the long nose on the lion, the red lips, him looking off into the distance. It's quite a serious lion, but he also reminds me of 100 children's books. And it makes me wonder what the inspiration for this lion was, because I feel like I've seen him before. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful piece. And one last lion for us, another recumbent lion. This one also sold for $650, which is kind of surprising because for me, this to this in the same auction, right? In the same auction are like night and day. For me, this is like a $1,600 rug, and this is a $600 rug. That's just my opinion. This is much more basic and naive, of course, but what we don't have happening in this one, while it is certainly a 19th century rug and lovely, great subject, obviously cats and lions are big, it doesn't have any particular expression on the face, and the body isn't really giving us a lot of cues, visual cues. He is recumbent, he is laying down, but we're not getting a lot of information about the shape of his body, which is part of the beauty of this animal, is like their majestic way that their body unfolds, and all of the different lines that it makes when it shifts weight. There's no weight to this. It's very abstract shape. It's very abstract, very primitive, really beautiful. Maybe somebody else's favorite lion. And the directional hooking of that square kind of on the top right in the background is very appealing. I do like the old-time quality of it. I just don't think, for me, it's on a par with some of the other lions that we saw in that same auction. But, you know, maybe the same buyer was a lion person. Maybe they bought all of the lion rugs and then instant collection, right? If you can afford to do that clean sweep of the lion rugs, if that were the case, what a great day for that person, right? Having that whole collection immediate right there. So anyway, what a lot of fun. I'm glad we got through those rugs. I don't know what we're doing on Friday, but we are well into October now. So on Friday, I am going to do a Halloween themed episode. I haven't decided yet, but I do want to look at really focused themes in rugs, like just ghosts, just witches, this kind of thing. And then we can talk a little bit about the history of Halloween, the holiday, right? Whether you celebrate it or not, right? It has roots that go long before our memories and our families. So all of the holidays that we look at, that we celebrate, that are contemporary holidays, are a giant snowball of ancestors and different periods of time and decades and centuries rolled into these weird modern holidays that we have, where, you know, we're dressing up like serial killers and collecting candy at people's doors. None of it makes sense. But it's all that history behind the holidays that I want to talk a little bit about and pull out the real magic. And I don't mean like Wiccan magic, because I know not everybody, that the conversation does not appeal. But all of the magic of the holiday, taking out these different tropes from the holiday, looking at the different symbols that we associate with Halloween and rugs that are specifically Halloween holiday rugs. I want to start looking at that now that we are this far into the month of October. So I'm not that focused yet, but I will be by Friday night, and I will be with you at our usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for a great and festive Halloween episode on cocktail night Friday night. In the meantime, send me your Halloween rugs for later in the month, our gallery night. We will also have a bingo night this month. So lots going on. Send me all your Halloween stuff. I need so much of it.